Hey free-to-play gang, welcome back to another video. So for today, we're going to take a look at resonance because this is something that is highly requested from a lot of you guys, and unfortunately I'm not going to be able to cram every single ESPER into one video. That does not make sense at all. That's going to take me like at least 6 hours or something like that. So we're going to start off with Gabrielle and then Lucas and finally Ling for this video. But before we get into Gabrielle, we need to take a look at her relics real quick, right? So the way she's built is with the shield relic over here, the adamantine relic. This is very important because of what we are going to do for her. And what you must also realize is that we are running her with HP percentage and HP percentage here, which gives her more HP for two different reasons. Number one, it's going to benefit the shield effect that you're going to give your allies with the adamantine set here. And secondly, that's where her resonance comes in. And if you think that I'm actually referring to this resonance over here, you are wrong. So let's take a look at why I feel like this is probably one of the best paths and it's quite complete as well. So let's take a look at this one by one, right? So the first note over here, that is going to be accuracy. Each surviving enemy grants accuracy plus 2%. So if you start off a fight and you are an initiator, you will have an additional 10% accuracy. So this makes a lot of sense because she has a lot of debuffs on her kit. Her second and third skills both land debuffs. And then now let's move downwards. So this is crisis response. If HP is below 50%, all allies damage plus 2% up to 6%. This is pretty good because it doesn't just benefit DPS ESPERs, it also benefits your tanky ESPERs as well. So this is actually quite useful. And then moving down further, we have hasty action. This is definitely one of my most favorite notes right now, right? I'm sure a lot of you guys already know this. If there is an ability on cooldown, your speed increases by 10. This is so good for almost all ESPERs in my opinion. And then moving to the right, we have accurate aim. If the target isn't buffed, miss rate minus 15%. This is so important for AoE debuffing ESPERs. And because she does AoE debuffs, the fact that she is a wind type means that she's probably not going to be able to reliably debuff Inferno type enemies all the time. You have a 50% chance of landing a miss. So because of that, this is actually going to reduce that chance to 35%, which is a huge difference in my opinion, right? From half the time to now hitting 2/3 of the time, which I think is a really good thing to have. But the main thing over here that I want to talk about for today on Gabrielle is going to be the upper path here. So Law of Conjunction, when granting a buff, each buff restores one own HP equal to 1% of max HP, up to 3% of max HP per turn. So the thing is, if you're going to land 2 buffs on one turn, you're going to recover 3% of your max HP. This is decent, this is okay, this is not the main thing. But the main thing is this one, self-sacrifice. When attacking, consumes 5% of max HP and deals true damage equal to 50% of the consumed HP, which is 2.5% of your max HP. This is so strong for her, and I'm going to show you why this is the case. So over at the VR Battlegrounds, let's take a look at her stats again, right? So she has almost 40,000 HP and 2.5% of 40,000 is about 1,000, right? It's somewhere around 1,000 damage. So the thing is, whenever she lands an attack, she's gonna deal an additional 1,000 damage. But that is not all, because do take note that she has AoE damage, and that is going to be very important for us to take note of. Okay, but there are a few things as well over here that we need to focus on. So take a look at the HP, right? It's at 100%. Understanding the fact that when she uses her skill, she's going to lose HP. But what you'll notice is that it does not actually happen. So let's throw her third skill here. We did so much damage, right? We did so much damage over here. But what you realize is that her HP is still at 100%. And why do you think this is the case? Do you think it's because of her talent that recovers her HP? The answer is no, it's because of her shield buff. The shield itself is taking that damage in place of her. So take a look at the little sliver of shield left, and when I use my second skill, which is also going to deal a lot of damage, take a look at this. So much damage, dude. So much damage, and her HP is still at 100%, but the thing is she lost her shield this way. So running Gap with a shield right now is not only going to protect the rest of your allies, but it's also going to protect her when she deals such heavy damage like so, right? And as you can see, when I'm using my normal attacks now, I'm starting to chip away at my HP, right? And what you realize is when I use my AoE, right? This is when I will start to lose even more HP. So by simply throwing her second skill itself, you're already going to land upwards of like maybe at least 5,000 damage onto every single enemy, and most of it is going to be true damage as well, which means that you're going to ignore defense all the time, which means that if you're up against a donor or you're up against a defensive height, you're going to deal so much damage. It doesn't even matter whether you miss or not, you're still going to do true damage. Now with the accuracy talent, we also do not need 80% accuracy, we can afford slightly less. So the thing is, with the accuracy talent, this is somewhere around 73% most of the time, which is good enough in my opinion. So let's move on to Lucas, but the thing is, I do not own a Lucas, I only own a donor instead. Instead of using a Lucas, I'm just going to use another ESPER to describe how I would build a Lucas if I had one. So let's just imagine that my Gabrielle is a Lucas. This would be the path that I think makes the most sense. So number one, you need a little bit more accuracy, which makes things a little bit easier for your relics as well. This is okay, right? And then moving on to Crisis Response, this is the same thing, right? Your HP is below 50%, all of your allies deal more damage, it's like whatever, right? Pressure Vitals, this is something that I think is quite important for him in terms of dealing more damage. So the thing is, upon successfully dispelling or stealing a buff, each buff grants the target max HP minus 3% up to minus 15% per target per turn. So essentially, if you use your third skill, which strip buffs, right, and if you land all your buff strips and you land 3 strips on each target, you're going to remove up to 9% of their max HP as well. That is an additional true damage worth 9% of their max HP. Of course, there is a 50% proc chance, which means that you're probably only going to land on average about a minus 4.5% per buff strip. But in my opinion, that is still a lot of damage that your single Lucas can dish out just by using his third skill. And I've mentioned this before, I don't feel like being an Inferno type is great for a debuffer, so it's also very important for you to have accurate aim over here. If the target isn't buffed, miss rate minus 15%. This is going to be so effective, just the same as Gabrielle. And obviously the hasty action is still going to be my favorite, so it's always going to be present in a lot of the healers and controllers out there. So we are also down to one more node. The thing is, you do not need to dump it into the HP path. You can dump it into anywhere that you deem fit. So for example, if you want a little bit more defense, or I think it's this one, right? When attacked by a crit, damage taken minus 2%, that's completely up to you. Or if you're running Adamantine on him, which you probably may not, you can also benefit from Protective Shield. But apart from that, anything else is just going to be a very minor upgrade for him. The main 5 nodes are going to be these 5 nodes over here. Now next up, we are going to talk about Ling, and this is going to be very important because a lot of you guys are going to start off with Ling, and a lot of you guys are also going to have many copies of him for some reason, right? So, Gabrielle is currently a Ling, and the thing is, I really like this for Ling because you're mostly going to invest into your DPS kit, right? So you're going to invest into attack percentage, crit damage, crit rate, and possibly some speed as well. You don't really have a lot of room for accuracy. So I feel like this one investment is actually going to make a big difference for you. This 10% accuracy is really nice to have. But obviously this is going to be like your 6th resonance, right? This is like probably like the last priority that you have. But the first 5 priorities is probably going to look something like this, and let me explain. So for the first node, this is very self-explanatory. Life Blast, if an enemy has more HP than you, then your crit rate increases by 5%. This is pretty good, especially if you do not want to invest so much into crit rate. You can actually have plus 55% crit rate, and that will be enough as long as you have Life Blast and you have a Dahlia to push your crit rate as well. Then moving upwards, this is Rampage Pursuit. When attacking, if the target's HP is below 50%, your damage increases by 3%. This 3% might not seem like much, but the thing is, this adds up a lot. Especially when you're cleaving enemy teams and you're using another Esper, like let's say a Lin Xiao, to throw the attack first, followed up with your Liling's attack. That is when the enemy's max HP is going to be below 50%. And your multi-hits are actually going to increase in damage as well. And finally, this is also very important in my opinion, especially when you're using him for PvP, which is what I'm doing. Preemptive attack. When casting an active ability for the first time in each battle, your damage increases by 6%. This is so huge for the early nuke, and I will show you exactly why this is the case. So let's take a look at some point war, and we are going to face off with Kovian, I guess. So let's see how powerful his preemptive attack is, and my Ling is of course at Reso 3, so he's definitely going to have preemptive attack. Alright, so let's go. We get the first turn. We're going to push our AP and absorb AP, and nice, we did snatch all the turns. Okay, so let our defense break first. Okay, decent. Okay, so previously this would probably only chop their HP down to about 50%, right? Those with defense breaks maybe down to about 50%. But let's just see how powerful this is right now. This is insane, dude. This is a lot of damage. I know it said 6%, but this is... it seems a lot more than 6% in my opinion. Okay, it probably adds up because of the rest of the other effects that I have, which is increase my damage by 3% when an enemy has less than 50% HP and all that. So all in all, this is a big difference in my opinion. In the bag. Alright, GG. Okay, let's proceed back to where we left off. Now, back at the Reso screen, we left off with the last 2 nodes over here. So, this is going to be the first one, Divine Strike. After casting a non-basic ability, the next one basic ability is damage plus 6%. So the thing is, I've tested this before, but if you use your second skill and your third skill, or your third skill then your second skill, your first skill will only still be kept at a plus 6% damage. It's not going to go up to plus 12%, so do take note of that. This is going to be just a little bit more DPS for him, so if you use your third skill, use your second skill afterwards, then your normal attack would have a 6% additional damage, which is sometimes okay, sometimes useful. But most importantly, this Perfect Harbor. So if a single ability's hit damage is higher than 35% of the target's max HP, deals additional true damage equal to 5% of target's max HP. Now the thing is, this single ability hit, it doesn't actually mean one line of damage, it actually consolidates all the lines added up to determine if that is more than 35% of the enemy's max HP. So for Ling's case, his third skill and his second skill is always going to trigger Perfect Harvest, which is also going to eat up an additional 5% of the target's max HP. So that's about it, right? Just a little bit more DPS. Now, I have one more bonus Esper for you guys because I know some of you guys actually drew a Tang Xuan in the beginner pool and you did not get a Ling instead. So all hope is not lost. This is the way that I would build my Tang Xuan. I'm just kidding, I will never ever build my Tang Xuan. So this is the way that I will build Tang Xuan, and it's definitely going to be quite different from a lot of you guys, right? So the thing is, I'm going to build him hybrid. Now the thing is, his main selling point is his third skill and his second skill. And his second skill is very important as well in keeping him alive. It heals himself and it gives himself a shield buff as well. So let's talk about the top part first, because this is very straightforward, right? So a little bit more crit rate, which is always useful, and some damage as well. When the enemy's HP is below 50%, you're going to deal a little bit more damage. That is okay, that is self-explanatory. There's an additional 6% base attack, which is also nice. But this path, I think it's quite important that you have a little bit of HP as well. But this path is going to make a lot of sense. So Life Flux, if your own HP, okay, because the target's HP is due this time, is below 40%, the target's healing received plus 5%. This is going to benefit your second skill's heal. So I think this is not bad, right? Because when you really need the healing, then it's going to come in very handy. And this, Accurate Aim, he has an AoE debuffing skill, which means that he definitely needs this miss rate up, minus 15%. Actually, you know what? You might actually want to go for targeted constraints as well to increase his accuracy. I think this might make a bit of sense as well. And then, Hasty Action. I really like this. I think as long as you're somewhere touching these nodes, then definitely go for Hasty Action. This is so good for him because he's gonna go in between his skills more frequently, which is really nice. And then finally, over here, Protective Shield. When granting yourself a shield, shield strength plus 8%. So this is pretty good for Tang Xuan. So let's take a look at his second skill, right? Which is probably like the main thing for his kit. So attacks one enemy, deals damage, okay? Gains a shield for 2 turns, and shield strength is equal to 10% of max HP. Afterwards, you absorb all enchantments on himself to restore own HP. Now, each enchantment restores 10% of your max HP, which is in most cases going to be 30% of your max HP, and increases the shield strength by 5% of your max HP. Which means that your shield strength actually goes up by 15% upwards to 25%. And on top of that, you're going to gain an additional 8% or 25%, which is, it's not a lot, okay? So it's going to be like 27% or something like that, but it's still something. So I think if you do not want the shield, you can just go for more accuracy. I think that is completely fine. But your healing from 30%, that goes up to 35%, I think. Actually, maybe on second thought, it's not actually plus an additional 5%, right? Because this is not true healing. So it probably goes up to 32.5% HP. Which is probably not much, but I do feel like the rest of the kit here, like these two nodes especially, is going to be super important. Alright, so there you have it. These are the 4 Espers, 3+1, of what I think are the better resonance paths for each of them. And they are all wildly different, even though some of them have some overlap in terms of their utility. So for example, Lucas and Tang Xuan both have very similar debuffing roles, but their paths are completely different. And Gabrielle, as well as an initiator in most of your tanky PvP teams, she's also going to run a very different setup as opposed to your Lucas, for example. And then of course finally we have Ling, who is just going to be a solid preemptive DPS Esper, which I think benefits a lot from this change in my opinion. Anyway, that would be it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed this content. If you did, don't forget to leave a thumbs up. It really helps the channel, and subscribe for more Dislyte content. Now with that said, this has been Daddy Free to Play, and as always, I will see you in the next video.